Happy Victory Monday to all of those who celebrate. You're probably listening to this on a Tuesday, but either way, you get the points. Welcome back to another episode of Gridiron Jungle, hosted by your two favorite Bengals fans. I
Yes,
am
sir.
Kyron, better known as Rich, joined by my brother, partner in crime, Philly Phil. What's going
Yes,
on with your
sir.
family? How you
Hey,
doing today?
man. Feeling a lot better than I have been the past 3 weeks. So, I'm sure we'll dive into it. Some things to still be worried about and some things to definitely, be happy about. And getting in the win column, celebrating this victory Monday is definitely one of them.
Absolutely, man. Normally we would go to Gold Star for our buy one get one, but as you always like to point out, man, things have gone bad for the Bengals ever since we switched to Skyline for the official sponsor. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about food at a later date. Before we get jumping into the episode, if you're watching on YouTube, well, first of all, YouTube is up. I
Yes,
know if you
sir.
follow our Gridiron Jungle Instagram page, Phil posted that the YouTube channel is up. I did make an adjustment to where you can comment. I think originally you couldn't comment on the post. Now you can comment, so you're good to go. Please make sure you subscribe, like, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. We appreciate all the support, all the feedback we've been getting over these past few weeks. Also, shout out to everyone uh, who noticed my barber's choice for my beard last week on YouTube, man. Phil pointed it out beforehand. Listen, I won't even get into it, but that's not my thing. As you can see, I'm back to normal Rich. But yeah, we definitely appreciate y'all. Also, um, it is September 30th as we're recording this, October 1st as
hmm
you're listening. So if you're a Reds fan, you know we don't talk about the Reds this time of the year because they're not relevant. However, we did lose a Cincinnati legend. If you're
Man.
watching on YouTube, you see me with the Cincinnati Reds hat. Normally, I would wear Bengals gear, but I felt it was only right. We got the news that the legendary hit king Pete Rose passed away at the age of 83.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
Obviously, Phil is a huge Reds fan. I am myself, but you have Mr. Red tatted on you.
Yes,
I know
sir.
what Cincinnati baseball means to you. Obviously, you can say what you want about Pete as a person and an individual if you've heard any
Right.
stories of people meeting him and all of that. However, can't deny his ability and what he meant to the Cincinnati Reds. Phil, do you have anything that you would like to speak on in regard to the late Pete Rose?
Yeah, man. Rest in peace to Pete Rose, the Hit King, Charlie Hustle. As some of you may know, all of you should know, Cincinnati invented the hustle. So um, definitely one of our legends. He meant a lot to the game of baseball. Arguably one of the greatest to ever do it. Arguably the best hitter of all time. It's unfortunate that he didn't get to see himself go into the Baseball Hall of Fame, which for those of you who follow baseball, or even those of you that don't, Pete was handed a lifetime ban for betting on baseball when he was the manager of the Reds. He claims he always bet on his team to win, but regardless, where gambling is in all the sports, I don't see how they can continue to hold that against Pete. And I'm sure that unfortunately he'll find his way into the hall now that he has passed away. But I just wish he would have been able to smell his get his flowers, smell the roses while he was still here. So definitely a sad day for baseball fans, and especially Cincinnati baseball fans. And he was a legend, man, and one of my favorites of all time for sure.
Absolutely, man. Well said. And it's not just the Reds. I mean, Cincinnati born and raised, Cincinnati through and through.
Through and through.
The Western Hills or West Highs, we like to call it in the city. Um, you said it perfectly, Phil. If you have an all white Cincinnati Reds cap, man, make sure you rock that for good old Pete,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Hustle himself. Absolutely, man. It's only right. Phil, myself, and our brother Corey, we made an honorary bet in Pete Rose's honor as well. So if you
Absolutely.
need to make a bet, man, go ahead and do that. I know Pete would go ahead and appreciate it. But this is not a base. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. Sad day for sports overall. Another sports legend, Dikembe Mutombo, passed away at the age of 58 with brain cancer. Very sad news. Wasn't expecting to see that come across my phone this afternoon.
Yeah.
Uh, obviously, just one of those. If you're in our age range, that's just one of those players you grew up watching from his Georgetown days, the legendary Georgetown big men. I remember the iconic. They were the first 8 seed to beat a 1 seed. This is back when the
Mm-hmm.
first rounds were best of 5 and not best of 7. And I remember the iconic shot of him on the ground holding the ball up. I think they beat the Sonics in '94. Once again, most of my sports knowledge is off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure that's when it was, and that was just an iconic shot. But not only just who he was as a basketball player and defender, multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, but just an incredible human and
Mm-hmm.
humanitarian. If you heard any of the stories and just what he did to give back to not just basketball, but to the community and make sure that everybody could benefit off the blessings he received from being able to play the game. So, like I said, this is a Bengals podcast, but anytime you have sports legends that become ancestors, we definitely want to make sure we take some time to acknowledge them and everything they contributed. So, rest in peace to both of those men. And we'll go ahead and get into it, Phil. Victory Monday.
Yes,
Before I
sir.
ask you kind of your thoughts on the game, I did want to take some time to acknowledge one thing that we did not speak on last week, which was obviously there were a lot of different emotions because of the loss and not expecting it. But we did not speak on Trent Brown being out for the
Mm.
season.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want Trent Brown to get better as possible. It is from a sports perspective. Obviously, injuries suck. They're the worst part of the game. So don't get me wrong when I say this, but from a personnel perspective, one of the best things for us is that we do have Mims as a backup. Most times, if you lose a starting tackle, that's going to show bad news for your team. For us, dare I say, we might improve, we might get better with Mims at right tackle. So speedy recovery for Trent Brown. Mims is stepping in as that starting right tackle, and I do not expect him to relinquish that spot anytime soon. I think he'll be on that outside for a while, but wanted to wish a speedy recovery to Trent Brown. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so Bengals win the game yesterday in the other Queen City, the second Queen City, the inauthentic Queen City, as I'll call it. You know Cincinnati is superior, but we go ahead and get the victory yesterday, 34-24.
Yes, sir. 34
Um,
to 24.
Phil, what were your overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, overall thoughts on the game. It wasn't pretty, but we got in the win column where we wanted to be. It was good to, get get that first one out the way, get the proverbial monkey off their back. Definitely I'm sure it was a relief to a lot of guys in the locker room and a lot of the fans as well. But just some overall takeaways. I think somebody's been listening. I'm not gonna say who, but we got that balanced attack that I've been asking for. 31 passes, 31 runs.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see what type of results that yields. In my opinion, just on the surface, I think that was the most impressive performance that our offense has had. So, I think that balance, plays a large part in that. So definitely good to see that. Run game, as I've been harping on, each and every episode, was very solid. Chase Brown and Zach Moss combined for 30 carries for 130 yards. And the thing that was great about it is we were able to create explosive runs, out of explosive plays out of the run game. Both of them had carries over 10-yard carries. So definitely what
Mm-hmm.
you want to see, allows you to be a lot more flexible in those third and medium, third and long situations, or I mean second and long situations that you may face. So you talked about that run, that O line being potentially a little bit better. I think we saw that this week. So definitely really good there. So Jamar Chase continues to, just make amazing things happen. I'm sure you've seen all over the internet the steals of that 63-yard touchdown he had, and where it's like
Mm-hmm.
this was a touchdown, and it's just he broke 3
Mm-hmm.
tackles on that play. That play had no business going for a touchdown. So overall thoughts without diving too deep into the takeaways, I would say offense looked great. If we weren't 1-3, I think Burrow would be in the conversation for MVP. So it's crazy when you see people on TV talking crazy about Joe Burrow. So I think the offense is is going to be our best defense going forward, unfortunately. And that's to put it nicely. So I thought the offense looked great. I thought the defense had one big stop, which that's all we asked for last week. I think they took it a little too literal. Hopefully, we get more stops next week than just one big stop. But overall, we got a great win. Shout out to the special teams. They might have been our best defense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, to go to piggyback off your Joe Burrow conversation, it reminds me of a Jay-Z lyric, and I'm a big Jay-Z fan. Reminds me of a Jay-Z lyric on Blueprint 2. Not a lyric, excuse me. He was actually just talking before the song when he had a line like, y'all get front page articles every time y'all mention Jay-Z name. That's how I'm feeling about a lot of these sportscasts. So y'all get front page, y'all get the headliners and the clips posted out when y'all mentioning Joe's name. And all you're doing is telling me that you're not watching the games, which is cool. You get paid to watch games. You're not doing it. I want a job like that too. But if you're watching the games, Phil, as you said, 100% he would be in the MVP category. And a big part of that, to go off what you said, is that run game. That run game, I think 4.5 yards a carry this season so far, which might be, it's hopefully not because it sounds crazy, but it might be the best in Burrow's career so far. As far as on his offense, I'd have to look that up. I'm not 100% certain, but I do like what we are doing in the run game. Chase Brown looks great. Now, here's the thing I will say. I know a lot of people are saying, I like Chase more. I like Chase more. I get it. He's definitely more explosive than Zach Moss. But I will say there is something to be said about being the complimentary back and being able to kind of come in and make those home run plays versus being the grind and, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4 back who, just grinds to get you those yards. I like the combination as one. I like both of them as one and what they're doing right now. Do I see a world in which Brown starts out carrying Zach Moss? Maybe. The only thing I'm hesitant about is we do play in the AFC North, and there's gonna be some bruiser of games. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at the end of this episode as we look into next week and what to expect. But same for you. Same as far as my recap, man. It's just good to see a win. Sometimes you just need to get that one, no matter how it looks. Would I love to play better? Absolutely. Of course, I would like to go in there and dominate it. I don't think I expected that. Just being realistic after the first 3 weeks and knowing that this isn't the Bryce Young Panthers. You sent a text message during the game. Like, Andy still got it.
Yeah.
Like, Andy was throwing dots. He was throwing dimes. And we know he's not the sexiest quarterback, but he can go in there and win you games. And that's what
Yeah.
that's what this league is about. That's what this league is about, man. Going out there and winning games. So I'll keep it brief as far as just liking the fact that we won the game. And we'll get into some more of the ins and outs and details and notes that I saw throughout. But Phil, let's go ahead and start on the offensive side of the ball. Joe Burrow, 71% passing, 0 sacks for the first time since 2021. We talk about a healthy Joe Burrow and what it can do. We talked about him being in the MVP conversation if we weren't 1-3. Is this the best that Joe Burrow has looked as a Bengal?
I think it's definitely the best start that he's had to a season. And if you know anything about Joe Burrow, as we've had the opportunity to watch him throughout his career here, he gets better each and every year as the season goes on. So I think that should, give those Bengal fans who still may have some worries about the team being 1-3 and still concerned about the direction and where we're headed. I think that should give you, some hope if you're looking for some. I think this is definitely I mean, he said it himself. This is the best start to a season that he's had, and it'd be hard to argue, without looking at the numbers. And obviously, we've had slow starts in each and every one of his seasons. So I think it's safe to say that this is the best that Burrow has looked. If you take away like the Super Bowl run towards the back half of that season, where he was lights out. But yeah, I definitely would say that's safe to say. And I think as we continue to turn things around here, that you will hear Burrow's name in those MVP conversations.
I agree with you. Just for record, for those of you keeping score at home, Joe Burrow was 22 of 31, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Um, Continuing the trend that we see throughout the entire NFL, just those passing yards aren't what they used to be. Um, We're seeing fewer and fewer 300-yard games and things of that nature, but that has nothing to do with anything. If you watch the game, Joe looks sharp. There's a certain confidence that he instills in his team and the fans. Just knowing that you have number 9 back there, you just feel like good things are going to happen. You never feel like you're out of it with the offense. And I think it was Chase Brown after the game saying that he feels, they feel like they can go out there and score 30 points a game each and every week, which is a great feeling because we more than likely are going to need it
Absolutely.
based off how things are going and how they're looking on the defensive side of the ball. But I did love the fact that, um, we just had a good control of the game and good pace. I didn't get a chance to really look and investigate the interception. I'm not sure if that was a miscommunication. Joe saw something that I forget who the intended receiver was on that play. But if Joe saw something on that play, if you're watching on television when they pan to the sideline, him looking at the tablet, watching that play, he was very frustrated. Actually, audibly screamed because there was something obviously that I think he saw that he wasn't expecting anyone else to see, or he was expecting his receiver to see it as well, or maybe he misread it. I'm not sure what happened, but it was very un-Joe like. To quote Aaron Rodgers, it was an outlier versus the rules. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, good game from Joe. Obviously, this is a Bengals podcast, but we got to shout out our guy Andy, 25 for 40, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick as well.
For
Um,
sure.
Andy did no wrong. His time in Cincinnati was just up. A lot of good memories for Andy. So I always enjoy seeing him do well as long as it's a loss against the Bengals, which is what we got. So I'm appreciative of that. We talked about the run game, the offensive line. Also, another thing, I'm glad Joe is okay because we had some injury scares or potential injury scares,
Yes,
Phil.
we did.
Joe's ankle got stepped on, which looked nasty in
Yeah.
real time. I'm sure it's hurting right now. I'm sure that's something that they're going to get wrapped up, but I don't think it's going to keep him out. Obviously, we got the news today that Trey Hendrickson, no nerve damage. Looks like it was just a stinger.
Mm-hmm.
Man, oh man, if he misses any time, that is going to be you can't replace Trey. And listen, I know we talk about the Bengals defense and how, you know, how poor it's looking. I was trying to find a nicer word, but let's just call it what it is. But it's not that you can't replace Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals. You can't replace Trey Hendrickson on any team. Like he's that
Period.
good. He's that
Absolutely.
good. So I don't want to make it sound like that. And also Mike Hilton, he was hurt early, but ended up coming back in the game. So
Yep.
all key players that we cannot afford to lose at this point in time. And I'm glad that everybody is doing well. We'll see what the status is for week 5 against the Ravens. But I was definitely glad to see all of that. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, Phil. What are your thoughts about our defense and how we looked, holding them to 24 points? I believe overall total yards. I think they had more yards. They had 375 to our 373. What do you think about the overall defense and their performance this past Sunday?
Outside of that opening drive where they had the big goal line stand, stopping them there down on fourth and goal and getting that turnover. Outside of that, I thought the defense was garbage. You let Chuba Hubbard go for over 100 yards, 104 yards on 18 carries, had almost 6 yards a carry and a touchdown where he just powered right through the middle of the defensive front. I thought Cam Taylor Britt looked uncharacteristically bad. He was so bad that Lou had to go to a rotation with DJ Turner. And if you know anything about Lou, he hates rotations. He just doesn't operate that way. And DJ Turner came in and he played really well. And you look at Deontay Johnson, he had a really big game for them. I think he had, I want to say, what did he have?
Deontay Johnson,
Yeah.
7 catches, 83 yards, 1 touchdown, 13 targets.
Yeah, and he had 2 catches. Cam was targeted 3 times while he was defending Deontay Johnson, and those 2 catches went for 60 yards. One of them being that 39-yard explosive down the sideline, and the third target was a drop. So he really would have went 3 for 3 against Cam. I mean, every single time that Cam lined up against Deontay Johnson, he got cooked. I won't have a knee-jerk reaction over one game, but yesterday Dax was CB1. Dax was targeted 6 times. He gave up 3 catches for 12 yards and had a pass breakup. Dax was locked down and he was defending everyone, backs, every receiver that was on the field, so he was really all over the place making plays, and that's what you like to see. And like I said, DJ Turner came in and had 2 pass breakups. Cam didn't, with that interception getting called off on the penalty that Cam had himself. Cam didn't have a single pass breakup the entire game, so definitely not what you want to see out of your CB1, who a lot of people thought would be stepping into a Pro Bowl type season, and he just hasn't looked like that. So I don't know if he was hurt, because he really didn't look like himself. I don't know if he was dealing with some illness. I don't know, but he definitely looked unlike himself, I'll say.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you watched any of the post game, Von Bell got a game ball for the interception he made. I mean, he could have fair caught that ball the way that it was batted up. I mean, anybody could have caught that ball. I don't understand why he got a game ball.
I think
Von, it's because he
that
played for
return.
Carolina.
Yeah, that return to
Yeah,
Carolina
but
thing. Yeah,
he was terrible. He was terrible, uncharacteristically unterrible. He was terrible tackling. I mean, I think he missed like 4 tackles in the game. He had one where I think it was Miles Sanders hit him with a little pitter patter, a little 2-step, and just left him.
Missed that tackle in the hole.
Just,
yes, absolutely.
I mean,
yes,
just froze him. It looked like a batter in a batter's box just getting fooled on the pitch. I mean, it was bad. If you, outside of Trey Hendrickson and Chris Jenkins, it was nobody else playing on that defensive side of the ball. And man, big shout out to Chris Jenkins. He was big time. He was huge in that stand on the goal line that I brought up earlier. I thought he had a really great game. Lou talked about he's going to give him as many snaps as he can handle. So definitely good to see that from a second round pick. Definitely want to see your returns there. So I thought that was a positive.
Yeah, I will say, and I think the confusion comes from outside of Trey. Everybody looked at Cam to be our second best defensive player. Obviously, you can talk about Logan Wilson and some other people who can contend for that, but Cam, midway through last season, looked like an All-Pro player before he had his injury. So to see him struggle, combined with some of the chirping that he's been doing to the media beforehand, if you're going to talk, you got to come out there and play like an all-pro. He just hasn't this first part of the season. I think there was a play last year on the Bengals sideline where he got a similar situation, just got beat behind. I'm not sure if he's baiting this. I don't know how much of this is technique for Cam because we saw the interception against Kansas City. We know that Cam has good recovery speed. He can play cornerback. I'm not concerned about that. But you and I, being Mike Lombardi fans, one of my favorite Lombardi quotes, either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen.
Yep.
And I like the fact that Lou noticed that, hey, we're not going to accept this. I don't want you thinking that this is acceptable, CB1 or not. Let's go ahead and get a rotation going. Hopefully that sends a message. And whatever's going on, I don't want to assume. I don't know. But whatever's going on with Cam, hopefully everything is cool and he gets back on his game. Maybe it's just you just need a little wake-up call. We'll see how that works out for him. But Deontay was cooking him. But I do love the bend but not break mentality that we had. That was a big, for as much as we've been disappointed with this defense, that goal line stand was huge. It was huge. 4th and 1. I think any team in the league right now is going to go for it on 4th and 1 against the Bengals. We talk about those stats. Chuba Hubbard, 5.78 yards a carry. Miles Sanders, even though he only carried the ball 6 times, 5.33. So both of your backs are over averaging 5 yards a carry. That's not where you want to be as a defensive front. However, we just have to accept the fact that this is going to be a bend not break defense. It's going to be a bend not break. Teams are gonna potentially have more yards than us, but it really comes down to the red zone. How many touchdowns are we going to save versus how many field goals they kick? We can hold teams to field goals, then that'll be good. Field goals and turnovers. That's the name. That's how Cincinnati football is going to be played this season in 2024. That's how we're going to win games. And the quicker everyone in that locker room, specifically the coaching staff, knows that and can game plan around that, I think the better off we will be. I'm not necessarily concerned about them moving the ball. I'm more so concerned about the big plays and keeping the touchdowns to a minimum. Obviously, I know that sounds like football 101, but that's just the makeup of our team. You have to, go to our strengths, and that's kind of our. We don't really have any strengths on defense, so let me not say that. But that's kind of what you need to do.
For sure.
Staying on the defense, beautiful play by Trey. No sacks this game for either team, but a beautiful play by Trey to get around that corner and barely touch the fingertips of Andy Dalton for that ball to go up in the air and for Vaughn to get an interception, which led to our first touchdown, which was the Chase Brown score. Um, can't say enough things about Trey Hendrickson. Just can't.
Yeah.
He's just incredible. So I got to give him credit for that. That was definitely one of the highlights. I think DJ Turner in the second quarter had a big pass breakup.
Yep.
That would have given Carolina some momentum. And one thing about playing teams who aren't as good as you, once again, saying that with a grain of salt, I don't think we're in the position to talk about who we're better than right now. But the teams that you're expected to beat, the last thing you want to do is give them any kind of confidence. And I think that play was big time for us and what we ended up accomplishing for the rest of the game. So shout out to DJ Turner for that.
Absolutely.
We already talked about the Uno play. I'm not sure how we took that to the crib. Yeah. So it's and that TD at the end of the first half hurt. We can't allow that to happen at the end of the first half. We can't allow them to get points.
Geno Stone, slow.
Yeah, and our secondary was supposed to be the strength of this defense, our back seven at least, between our linebackers and our secondary. Obviously, we run a lot of nickel. So those 7 players are going to be the strength of our defense. And right now, it's just a little bit iffy. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't have too much bad to say because we did get a win. And I've just accepted the fact that the wins aren't going to be pretty. I don't know if we're going to have those blowout games this season. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But we got to stack them up on the left-hand column. You
sure.
mentioned special teams. I want to hear your thoughts on that. If you have any to share, you said that was probably our best defense.
Yeah, all 3 punts Ryan Rico made were inside the 10-yard line. That's big time. Ryan Rico leads the NFL in both net yards per punt and gross yards per punt. So really just flipping the field for us, really being a weapon in the special teams area. Shout out to Money Mac for doing what he does and getting back on track there. I think he had a 56-yarder, I want to say 53-yarder maybe. But great job there. He always makes the tough ones. It's the semi easy ones that you got to worry about sometimes. But yeah, shout out to special teams. I thought they did their job. And before we get too far away from the defense, for those that are thinking, Fields being too rough on the defense, I saw a stat earlier, and the Bengals have 10 defensive players with PFF grades below 60 for the season, and 8 of them play on the defensive line. So, when we talk about, Trey doesn't have any help, I really mean that. Like, Trey Hendrickson is one and Chris Jenkins is the other one. Those are the 2 guys that are over 60. And Lawrence Guy, if you want to add him in the mix, So I don't know. I don't know. So
yeah. And also I meant to say this when you brought up Dax. That play, we talked about that fourth that goal line stand at the beginning of the game. Dax made an incredible play on that fade route to the right corner, the end zone.
Playing all the way through the end of the play.
Absolutely. If he didn't punch that ball out, that could have been 6 for them. So that was an incredible play. I think Dax, not to be pun intended, he earned his stripes as far as being a solid cornerback too. Remember, just a few months ago, we were wondering if he was even going to win the CB2 battle in camp. And it didn't look good early, but slowly but surely he's coming along. I feel confident with him on the other side, and we can see if we can continue building on that. You mentioned Evan McPherson. Obviously, can't ask for a better game out of him. 2 for 2 on field goals, a longer 56, 4 for 4 on extra points. 63-yard punt by Ryan. I think he's going to be field position is going to have to be something that we maintain and manage this entire season. So it's good to see that. But I will tell you this: my favorite special teams play wasn't even by us. I just got a kick out of the Carolina's punter trying to get tough on that fourth and that fake punt that they ran. I forget if it was an incomplete pass. There wasn't a penalty; it was an incomplete pass. It hit the receiver's hands, but he dropped it. But the punter was really trying to argue his case and talking a little bit of that talk to our special teams, which I just thought was hilarious. Like, bro, go sit down somewhere.
They got him out of there real quick.
Yeah, man, get out of here real quick, man. So, as far as the defense goes, just my last final thoughts. What really bothers me the most, we know the run defense is going to be a problem this entire season. So there's no reason of just kind of continuing to harp on it in a major way. But my biggest issue right now is just going to be the flats. We don't cover the flats for the middle of the field well at all. And it's to play defense, man, you got to have a different type of mentality. You really do. And I know the rules have made it to where this is an offensive game. The fans want to see the points and all of that, but you got to be flying to the ball. There is no urgency. And this isn't necessarily just a Bengals problem. This is something I see throughout the entire NFL. I talked last week about the CBA and the rules that they put into place for padded practices. Obviously, that makes a difference. If you're not practicing, you can't just go out there and have speed tackle someone, right? You can't do that in practice. You know, when you're doing these type of non-padded practices, you're going over coverages and you're going over game plans. You know, where you're supposed to be on certain calls, make sure everybody's on the same page with the terminology. But when it comes to actual tackling, that just takes a certain kind of heart and a skill you have to put your body on the line. That takes flying around. I was listening to someone and they were talking about, you know, when those 49er teams had those dominant defenses, not even now, but even when you go back to the Willis and Bowman days, like those guys were just flying around all over the place. Like they were getting after it. Like you have to have 11 to the ball. Like, and I've coached Pee Wee football and you teach them that. Like you're running laps if you don't run to that ball. I don't care what's going on. You see a defender, everybody needs to be shooting. Like cover your gaps, cover your lanes, and you need to be flying to that ball. You need to go with the person or with the purpose. It can't be you can't tackle with your hands and your arms. You got to tackle with your legs. Like actually run up with an intention of bringing someone to the ground. There's a lot of grabbing going on, a lot of like just hoping somebody gets pushed out of bounds or hoping somebody goes down. It's really a mentality. And once you have everybody on that page, I think it changes. But I think about that a lot when I think about the flats because we're giving them way too much space and NFL offensive players are just way too skilled. You give them a few yards and those are going to be 5-6 yards. A lot of teams now, they're using those quick screens and they're using those dump offs as run plays almost.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the same thing in a sense. It's like a long pitch. So they're using those and you're giving up 5-6 yards a pop. And we're getting into 2nd and 4 versus 2nd and 8, or we're getting into 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. That makes a big difference, especially when your defense isn't as dominant as you would like it to be. So hopefully we look at that on tape. We see what some of these teams like to do and we fix that. But I think it's just a mentality. I think it's more so fly to the ball. Let's get after it. Let's get after it, man. Let's fill these gaps. I'm thinking about that play you mentioned earlier, Phil, when Miles Sanders went through the hole and Von Bell just kind of and I'm not tripping too much because that's not like him. But, man, you really want to make that play. Like, just to set a tone as a captain of the defense, like, just to let people know, like, we can do this. Like, we can make stops when we need to get the stops. And, thankfully, we did get a stop this week, enough to win the game. But I just want to see a little bit more heart, a little bit more fire, because you need fire to play defense. You just
for sure
you're gonna get ran on, and that's me coming as a defensive player my entire life. That's what I love to do. I liked hitting people versus getting hit or being on offense, and that's just that mentality you have to bring in with it. So hopefully we fix that. We fix our tackling issues. Once again, not going to put it all on the Bengals. That's an issue across the league, and that's pretty much all I have to say about the defense this game. Like I said, thankfully, we got the win. But I do want to point out a couple other things before we start talking about game balls and what to expect next week, Phil. One thing, Eric All Jr. is a football player.
Yes, sir.
I'm so happy he's on our team.
Yeah, such a steal. Steal of it could be, one of the steals of the draft for sure.
And when I say a football player, everybody who's played football knows exactly what I mean. I'm not saying he's flashy. He is a football player. He is exactly what you want him to do. I guarantee you, if we needed Eric All to play linebacker or D end, he would go out and do it with no question.
For
Like he's
sure.
just a football player. He's just one of those people, man. I love the way that he works. I love the mentality that he has coming in each and every week. You can tell by the trust that he's building within the offense. I don't think he's ever going to put up like Eifert type of numbers when Eifert had his big year. I don't think he could be. It's potentially there, but right now it's not needed of him. But you see him quickly. I know Tanner Hudson's out, but even you called that after week one, Phil. He's going to take those Hudson snaps. Depending on who we need to look like on offense, you're going to see a lot more of him in the snap percentage of the offense. The way he blocks, the way he lines up at fullback to be lead block. I just love Eric Hall Jr. I love Eric Hall Jr. He's reaching the I might need to get a jersey status. Because I'm that big of a fan of him. Like he's just a football player, and I think that's the ultimate compliment you can give someone who plays football. You a ball player. Shout out to Monica Wright and Loving Basketball. I'm a ball player. That's what he is, man. He is a ball player. He plays football. I'm so happy he's on our team. I know I mentioned the whole Chase Brown, Zach Moss conversation. Did you have anything to add to that? Because we have somebody in one of our group chats who,
for sure.
I was on the Chase Brown train. I know he's listening, so I know he's doing it. But I gave my thoughts on, I think he looks that good because he is a complimentary back versus an every down back. Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share on it?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think Chase Brown is as good as he is, or is effective as he is. I won't say it's as good as he is, as effective as he is, because he has Zach Moss. I don't want anybody to say anything crazy to me, but you look at Detroit, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs is as effective as he is because of David Montgomery. It's that thunder and lightning, even though they both got a little bit of each characteristic. The way that the Detroit runs the ball, you couldn't just lean on Jahmyr Gibbs as the bell cow. You can't lean on Chase Brown as the bell cow. I don't care if he had 30 carries a game in college. This isn't college, If you're, wealthy enough to afford a Ferrari, it's probably not your everyday driver. It's just not built for that. And Chase Brown isn't built for that. So I would love to see it continue to be that split carry, that split workload. If it's 60-40, I would like to see it continue to go to Moss. If it's split, that would be great. I'm fine with that, because both of them can do the same things. Like I said earlier, Zach Moss is still able to get explosives out of the run game because of his ability to break tackles, his ability to make that first defender miss. So you're not gonna have the breakaway, runaway plays with Zach Moss, but you can still have explosive plays. Chase Brown could have had a touchdown, a long touchdown, but he has no vision. He ran into his own guy and tripped himself up. It's like when you let your kids play Need for Speed and they just drive real fast into the guardrail. Like, that's Chase Brown. Like, he's fast, but you just have to use him sparingly. And yes, Eric All, he outsnapped all the tight ends. He had more snaps than Drew Sample and Mike Gesicki. He almost doubled Gesicki. Eric All had 40 snaps. Drew Sample had 38, and Gesicki had 22. I know Gesicki was a little banged up, but definitely just shows you the impact that Eric All is already having, showing you how well he's learning the offense, learning the playbook. And this is a guy that, a lot of teams passed on. The Bengals took a somewhat late flyer on him. This is a guy that a lot of people thought was going to start on the pup. He's been clear since day one. And, essentially he's our starting tight end week 4. So I think that goes to that football player comment that you made there. So
I know he didn't start at Iowa. I think he started in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. But man, Kittle, Laporta, Fant, something in the water with those tight ends over there.
No doubt.
At Iowa. Hawkinson, who we haven't seen this year because he's on the pup list. I'm glad you mentioned, I know Chase he could carry 30, 35 times at Illinois. We understand that. We knew he was a good player coming out. I was happy when we drafted him. The difference between college football and NFL is that everybody in the NFL is in the NFL. When you're playing college football, there's about 6 people on the field at once, maybe, unless you're Alabama, Georgia game. But mostly your average Illinois versus Wisconsin game on a Saturday at noon. At any given time on the field, there might be 4, 5, 6 players who are drafted and are going to play in the NFL. The rest are going to
Mm-hmm.
be accountants and doctors and everything else. They're going to be doing what we're doing. So yeah, it's easy to do that there, but the NFL is a whole different ball game. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to downplay him, but I do see him as that perfect secondary back. Um,
100%.
and I think we get the max. We maximize him when we use him that way. So I'm
Yeah.
not upset about that at all.
Yeah.
And trust me, if he had to be called on to be the every down back, I think we would see the results in the stats. That's nothing about his talent. That's just how the game is played. There's certain things that we need from Zach Moss that he's providing, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes Chase Brown be the best version of himself. So shout out to him. Did you have a play of the game at all?
Oh, without a doubt. That's easy. That's Jamar
Yeah,
Chase, a 63-yard touchdown, breaking 3 tackles, sprinting up the sideline. And if you watch that play back, I don't know if you saw T, he was moving on that play.
moving.
That's the play to let me know T is healthy. It wasn't the 10 targets. It wasn't the good day that he had that we didn't, talk about because he didn't score. But that's what let me know that the hamstring was good when he was running, step for step with Jamar down the sideline there. But without a doubt, that was play of the game for me. No question.
Absolutely, man. T was moving. Also, just want to shout out Mike Gesicki, man. Just thanks for hopefully you're getting healthy. I had Burrow 2 touchdowns, Gesicki 20+ yards. Sold me on that. But it is what it is. Feeling my stuff, I've been talking about putting out an extra episode, maybe to talk a little bit of gambling. For those of you who do partake, we'll see if that's going. Matter of fact, hit us up. Hit us up on Gridiron Jungle on Instagram, gridironjungle@gmail.com, or leave a
Yes, sir.
comment on YouTube if that's something you might be interested in. Shout out to Bob Ryan and Entourage. If you understand that, then we gonna be cool forever. But if that's something you might be interested in, let us know, and we'll put the work in to kind of make those episodes happen. That's something Phil and myself talk about anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
to bring it to a podcast format, just a small mini episode, 15, 20 minutes or so, just talks about some of our favorite plays. That might be something we can do. I knew you were going to go with the chase play.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to double down on it. I think that's the obvious play of the game. So I'm going to go with one that the 3rd and 5 scramble at the end of the third quarter by Joe.
Yeah.
You talk about healthy, and we knew Joe was healthy, but that's healthy plus locked in.
Mm-hmm.
That's a desire. When I talked about the defense and just having that heart, it's just more about the will. That's just one of those like we're gonna make a play out of this. And him to roll out, and I know teams or social media was calling him a magician, but that's what it was, man. I just look at it as that when you talk about Michael Jordan, when you talk about Kobe and basketball, one of the biggest things that their teammates would say. I know Steve Kerr says this all the time about Michael, and I've heard people say it about Kobe. Like there's just certain nights that random Wednesday game against the team that's 9-26, and you just got you looking ahead and you just off to a slow start. And there's just those nights when your best player, you look in their eyes and they're not going to let you lose that game. I don't care
Right.
how bad we playing. I don't care how bad I'm playing. Like we're not losing today. And that was one of those plays I think that Burrow made. Just we're not
Mm-hmm.
losing today. Like we're getting in this win column this week, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. I just thought it was a beautiful play. It just showed a lot more than it wasn't fancy. It wasn't the chase play, but it was one of those we're not losing this week. That might have to be a category that we bring on, like the we're not losing this week play.
For sure.
We
I
might just
like
have
it.
But yeah, anything else that you want to discuss from this game? Any kind of minor notes or anything before we talk about Baltimore next week?
Yeah, just a couple of takeaways. We talked about Burrow being off to the best start of his career. I just want to shout out Orlando Brown Jr., who's also probably off to the best start of his career. He's third amongst all offensive tackles at pass block win rate. He's third behind Ronnie Stanley and Lane Johnson. And if you know anything about O-line play, those two are staples on the O-line. So definitely good to see Orlando Brown in that company. And the person that's at number 4 right behind him is Penei Sewell. So, definitely I know a lot of people remember the Sewell versus Chase debate, so it's good to see Orlando Brown on top of that list there, in that top three there. Also, Jamar Chase became just the fourth player to reach 4,000 receiving yards, 30 touchdowns, and over their first 50 career games. That list includes Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, AJ Green, and Odell Beckham Jr. So Jamar Chase becomes the fifth to that list.
Decent,
There's only
decent
one
players.
there's only one team that has two players on that list. That would be the Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, only other thing that I had was talking about injuries. So we can weave that in wherever you want if you want to talk about that. So
Yeah, we can talk about injuries now. Before we do, I just want to say that, man. I just want to say something and give you your flowers. One of my favorite parts about this podcast are the random stats and random information that you give out. I'm a big research guy. If you've ever listened to Culture Garden or any of the other podcasts I'm about, a lot of the compliments that I get about it is when people say, "Hey, I had no idea this information about that movie or anything like that. Like
yeah,
I watched this movie for years and I never knew that, or I never knew this information. I never knew this actor almost played this part." So I always find it cool and the research that goes into it. And I'll personally tell you, as a fan of yours, Phil, that's one of my favorite segments when you throw out stats that I had no idea about. So I
appreciate
appreciate that. And I don't know if we make it a Phil random stats segment or
that.
whatever. We're still building the show and we're still
For
formatting
sure.
it and we're still trying to, get things going. But that is something for sure that I always look forward to because I know you're going to hit me with something. I had no idea. And it is cool to have two players on that list, man. I think we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it in the unreleased episode. I think we talked about how, or told people there was an original version of this podcast during training camp where we were going to cover training camp. And then it ended up saying, nah, let's wait till the season.
Right.
So I don't know if that was on the unreleased or in our first episode, but when we talked about if you just remember how good AJ Green was in his prime,
Man.
I mean, it was ridiculous. AJ
Yeah.
Green, absolute legend. Shout out to the Bengals. And shout out to him. Injuries. Let's talk about it,
Yeah,
Phil.
yeah. I talked about it a little bit earlier about CTB's uncharacteristic like performance. I don't know, he just wasn't moving well to me. So, I haven't heard anything come out yet. Hopefully, he's not injured, or hopefully he was. I don't know. He just looked really bad, but I hope he's okay. You talked about it earlier with Trey. No confirmed, no nerve damage. His timeline to return is still TBD. BJ Hill will be back this week against the Ravens, which is huge. We're going to need all the help that we can get there. Sheldon Rankins, who's also dealing with a hamstring, is also TBD. Sam Hubbard's been dealing with a hamstring allegedly all season, but playing through it. So I'm sure he'll continue to do that, whether that's to the team's detriment or to betterment. I don't know. Uh, Miles Murphy.
Hey, you don't. Hey, man, you and Hubbard, man, that's hilarious to me. But
Yeah,
go ahead, keep going.
I don't know, man. I
It's not
just
a love. It's not a love hate relationship. It's just a funny little. It's a funny thing.
yeah, like
It's a
I
funny
got
thing.
all it's all love for Hubbard. There's no hate, but like, you
Absolutely, yeah.
know, you know how it's that fine line of being able to play through something to help your team versus actually hurting your team. And I think he's kind of in that spot where somebody got to protect him from himself.
Well,
So
let me ask before you get to the next injury.
mhm,
Even right now, with him not being 100%, I say he's maybe 40%, 50%.
mhm.
Is that still our best option? Is he still a better option than Osai?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, this past game, I think he made his biggest impact when he was kicked inside playing. So, I think if you're gonna continue to try to play him some limited snaps, because I think that's what the hope was, that Murphy would be able to spell him a little bit more. But then Murphy got hurt early on, so they weren't able to really execute that plan. But I know this is me wishful thinking and just being, trying to manifest something. But I really wish the Bengals would get on the phone with the Jets and try to make a move for Hassan Reddick. They gave up a third round pick to get him. I don't know if he'd be willing to come play for the Bengals without an extension, because you know how the Bengals are with extensions right now. But I would definitely give up a third round pick to be able to get Hassan Riddick, whether Trey is okay or not. He needs some help on that other side. And like I said last week, you can't bank on Miles Murphy to come back and just be that guy. So
Yeah, I like Hubbard being moved on the inside. His strength has always been the run.
yeah.
He's never been, an elite pass rusher. So I do like that idea. And we talk about our run defense and our interior line. I think that's a good move. So the Reddick situation, that's just interesting as a whole. I think that's more of a Jets thing. I don't know what the full situation is. Very odd.
Hmm.
The holdout. Like I said, I don't even know. I don't even know if Reddick's ever even been to the facility in New Jersey.
Maybe
And
once,
I've heard talks of him wanting to be traded back to Philly.
which he can't.
Um,
He's not eligible to be
r-
reacquired by Philly.
right. So I don't know if that's something that normally I would say that's not something I would want to get involved with. But given how much help we need, I think anything is possible. And worst case scenario, I don't know if I want to give up a third for him. I think that maybe the Jets would take. I see if I can give them a fifth. I know that's underselling it, but
Yeah.
they're kind of in a position where listen, you're either gonna get nothing or you can get a fifth back, and
Hmm.
maybe that can happen. Maybe a fifth and a future seventh. I don't know, but it
Yeah.
is something that's worth a phone call if you're the Bengals. But I don't know if he fits in with the culture and what we're trying to build. I also don't know much about Hassan Reddick outside of this situation. So I
Hmm.
don't want to say it's a character thing when I don't really know
Yeah.
what his character is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my quick 2 cents.
For
What else
sure.
do you have as far as the injuries go, Phil?
Yeah, on the injury front, Miles Murphy and McKinley Jackson are both expected to enter their 21-day window on Wednesday for them to be activated and added to the active roster. So definitely would love to see both of those guys make it back. I don't know if either will make it back for this game, but it would be great because this is an all hands on deck type of game coming up this week. Also, Brad Robbins has been activated from the IR. I guess you can assume that the punter battle is going to ensue, but I don't know. I personally think Ryan Rico has showed enough, but
Yeah.
you only can bring back 8 players off of the IR as far as bringing them back to play, and the Bengals just used one of those on Brad Robbins. So I know we've got an extra spot right now, so you don't necessarily have to make a decision on who's going to be the punter, but I don't foresee them carrying 2 punters going forward, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, that's all I got on the injury front.
Appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Anything else about this week's game before we talk about talk briefly about next week?
No, I got nothing else on this week. Well, as far as this week's game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Phil. First division game of the year.
Yes, sir.
Baltimore Ravens coming off a 35-10 victory on Sunday Night Football will be visiting Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. Um, what does that be? October the 8th, 9th? October
That'd
9th?
be October the 6th.
October the 6th. Wow, I was all the way
Hmm.
off. Yeah, because the ninth is a Wednesday, so you're right.
Yeah,
Um, the line opened up on most of your sports books. Cincinnati plus 2.5 at home.
I think it's already down to
Um,
1.5.
Is it down to 1.5? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of money's coming in on the Ravens after their performance back to back weeks. Even though they didn't do a good job of closing the game against Dallas a couple weeks ago, but obviously dominated in the run game, which is frightening because our major issue on defense is stopping the run. Phil, I want to ask you what makes you optimistic about us getting a win on Sunday, and what worries you about dropping a 1-4 on Sunday?
Absolutely. The thing that makes me optimistic is we highlighted earlier the play of Burrow. If we can, I'm not saying we have to score touchdowns on every possession, but we're probably going to have to get points on every single possession. I think the Bengals and Joe Burrow have proven that they've been able to figure out the Ravens. And the Ravens, they play really really well against Buffalo this past weekend, but up until then, they haven't really struck fear in me offensively. Obviously, they have a really scary guy on the other side in that backfield and Derrick Henry. So I would say that's the guy that worries me, that may put us in that position of being 1-4 following Sunday's game. And I mean, you look at the first play of the game, from that Ravens Bills game, and Derrick Henry had a whole game's worth in one play right off the rip. So I think that first carry went for 87 yards and a touchdown, or 83 yards and a touchdown. So, like I said earlier, we let Chuba Hubbard go over 100 yards, almost 6 yards a carry. So that would definitely be an area I'm concerned in. Like I said, hopefully we can get all the guys healthy that we can to be able to put up some resistance there. But it's definitely going to come down to, in my opinion, our offense executing, and our defense hopefully making a timely stop.
Yeah, well said, man. If I answer that same question, what makes me optimistic? It is a divisional game. I think divisional games are a lot different than opponents that you don't know.
Hmm.
Um, so that helps me, this play of Joe Burrow, to play this offense, even if it is who has the ball last, one of those type of games, I feel confident if it's us with that ball last and Joe being able to put us in a position to win the game. Um, I also just feel the urgency of everybody in that locker room understanding that
Hmm.
you can't really fall 1-4, 1-4. 0-3 is a big hole to get out of, but 1-4 is even scarier, even with that win. Like I said, sometimes wins just do something for you
Hmm.
mentally, and they just kind of make things a little bit more smooth. I talked last week about I don't want to see any smiles on the Bengals social media pages. I don't want to see any practice photos of anybody smiling. I want to see everybody locked in. For the most part, I think we did get that. I think
Hmm.
like you said, Phil, somebody's listening. Not sure who it is, but I think we need another week like that. I locked in. Joe gave a rare pregame speech
Yeah.
against the Panthers. And he talked about that importance of just getting that first win. I think that your mentality can change when you start getting those division wins,
Hmm.
right? And I think that we're going to get a little bit more of the same thing. We shouted out Corey earlier. Corey this past week was in our group chat talking about who was going to be the person. Mixon was kind of that guy for us to get everybody riled up. He's no longer
Hmm.
here. And Corey mentioned, it's Joe. People want to hear from Joe. Like, we get the Joe Cool persona, but people want to hear that talk from Joe.
Hmm.
He did provide it against Carolina. Hopefully he does it again. He comes out focused, and maybe it puts a little bit of extra gear in our back. um, Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of our run defense. I've said that ad nauseum, and that is what the Ravens do very well. All hands on deck, flying to the ball, 11, like technique, skills. You guys are in the NFL. You understand what to do. You
Hmm.
understand the scheme. You understand what Lou's trying to do. Now it's really coming down to, can we stop the run? Can we cover the flats, and can we cover those plays? Because we saw what happened with Jaden Daniels, which I said it last week. Don't be
Yeah.
surprised. Don't be surprised if we look back and say, "Hey, man, that's just who that kid is."
Hmm.
And even with as well of a game he played, we still were a stop away from winning that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that gave me optimism. But we saw what happens when Jaden gets out the pocket, the plays that he can make. Lamar obviously is capable of doing the same thing. Reigning MVP. Um, we have to be able to make sure we cover the middle of the field and those flats, as I mentioned earlier. And also, hopefully, Zach, man, if you're listening, please, please, please. Phil knows this. I know this, and we are fans. So that means you should know this. Please make sure you utilize the run game. Time of possession is going to be our best friend in this game. Limit
Absolutely.
their possessions, limit their possessions on offense. All right. Panthers won the time of possession battle this past week, right? Only by like a minute and a half or 2 minutes or so, but they still
Hmm.
won it. We can't do that. If we don't win time of possession on Sunday, we're not going to win the game. That's just what it comes down to. We have to game plan. Obviously, we have to play well, but we have to put ourselves in a position to win this game. That's going to be a big factor. I'm optimistic that we did have more of that balanced attack, 31 rushes, 31 passes. We need more of that. Maybe 35, 36, 37 rushes, maybe 25 passes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as good as Joe is, let's make sure the run game in the trenches opens everything else up. Like, Joe's going to be fine, but if we don't establish a run and they know that's what we're doing, it's going to be a rough day.
Yep.
Even though Joe is incredible, he can still pick his poison. You don't make it hard on him. Make it easy. I think we got something rolling with the run game. Our offensive line looks a lot better with the run blocking. I think that is something that we can accomplish. They don't scare me. When I say they, I mean the Ravens. They don't scare me from a run stop perspective. Van Noy, obviously he can get to the quarterback. They have guys who can get to the quarterback, but running the ball, I think we can do it.
For sure.
And I think the fact that we're at home, I think the jungle's going to be rocking. You know what the feeling is like after we get that first win. I think that we have enough to go ahead and get it done. Very interesting when you look at how the Ravens played against Baltimore, against Buffalo, which I told you on the phone earlier. I just think that's who Buffalo is. Buffalo didn't play anybody the past 2 weeks, and the week one when they played the Cardinals, they had to come from behind at home to get that job done. And we saw what Washington did to the Cardinals yesterday in Arizona on the road. So I say all that to say, I don't think Buffalo was that good, and I think that got exposed yesterday. I think we can run the ball better. I think we can have a better game plan and a better performance. And I think it's interesting, like I said, with that 25-point win, that they're only favored by 2.5, or in some books, maybe 1.5. That says a lot. That's telling you something. These lines tell you something. Because if you watch our performance, which wasn't the best against a not so good Carolina team, you would expect that line to open up maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which would essentially be a pick 'em, because you figure with us being at home, you get an advantage there. But
yeah, so I think it says something. I think the story is it just seems too easy to pick the Ravens. I think everybody's going to be on them, and I think it's a chance for us to play that underdog role and get that first division win, which at this point is starting 0-3. We have to be 5-1. At worst, 4-2 in the division this year. We have to. Like, that's just what it comes down to. We have to get these division games. And I think Sunday is going to be a big start for us. So, yeah, I think that's about it, Phil. Go ahead.
I've got one other thing that gives me optimism. If you if you think back to last year, how Joe Burrow's season ended, you know who it ended against.
Thursday Night Football at Baltimore.
You talked earlier about, Joe having that we're not gonna lose play. I think Joe's gonna have that we're not gonna lose mentality this entire game because of that. He wants to get that get back. He wants to prove to the Ravens, to the fans, to the critics that, hey, yeah, we started 0-3. Yeah, it's only been so many teams in the past however many years that's, made it to the playoffs since then. Well, what did Joe say? The window is open my entire career. So I'm looking for Joe to run through that window, and I'm hoping the team follows suit. So that also gives me optimism.
Yeah, man, we've seen it before. We've seen these runs. We've seen these slow starts, and we've seen the runs that come after it. That's going to be a huge confidence boost. We go in there and play how we need to play to get this win. And then you can very easily, like I said, be looking at us at 2-3 going into the Sunday night game at New York / New Jersey, and looking at possibly 3-3. But we're not going to jump ahead. We still have to take care of business this week, this Sunday. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Phil, do you have any final words before we log off?
No, that's it. I'm gonna try to talk Rich into doing a pregame show for this Ravens game, but that's it.
Yeah, man, we'll see what we can put together. I'm not mad at it. We appreciate all of you out there for listening, watching, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and please do not forget we are on YouTube. Please be a part of this community that we are building. Like, comment, share. Comment is the key thing, whether it's on Instagram, whether it is on YouTube. We will read these on the episode to make you a part of the conversation. We appreciate everybody out there. Please make sure that you celebrate Victory Monday as you see fit, whatever that is, whatever your tradition is, make sure that you celebrate it first one of the season. With that being said, we will see you to talk about the Ravens next time. Until then, who they?
Who they?